Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here on a Friday morning. Ole Miss, according to a tweet from John Rothstein, has just fired head coach Kermit Davis with a couple weeks left. When Case, his assistant, will take over. Like your quick reaction to the news.
Well, as you can tell, I still don't have much of a voice, so I will try not to go too far into this. Yeah, I mean, anybody who's probably followed my SEC basketball stuff for years now, I'm a Kermit Davis guy. Like I've kind of rooted for their success there, and obviously seeing what he did at MTSU, you know, I think just locally, just kind of seeing, what he was able to do there those several seasons, towards the end of his tenure there, it made sense for him to get the opportunity to, have this shot at Ole Miss. And, I think you look at it from that standpoint, they go to the tournament in year one. And, that's something we always say is when you have that success, all of a sudden that becomes the bar. And, that's where you have to reach. And they did that in his first season. They got to the tournament, won 20 games and again got to the tournament. And so I think from there you've already set kind of the standard is all right, well, if you're doing it in year one, well, we need to certainly try to get there every season, right? And of course they haven't been able to do that since. And as we said, it's just kind of been it's a business of winning. I know that, that, Kermit Davis knows that. Like it's one where, as we always say, in this landscape in the SEC now, like this isn't SEC basketball from a decade or more ago. Like this is just such a different landscape now with the financial stuff that's at stake, everything else. And I always say someone's got to finish 1 through 14, and there have been a lot of good coaches that have come through this league that have either gotten fired or not had success. And again, these are people that have the background of getting to the NCAA tournament, winning games in the tournament. And so, yeah, I mean, it was obviously not the direction they wanted it to go because they did start off great there. And, um, but again, we talked about kind of just injuries. I mean, that's a team. We talk about kind of the programs that have been impacted the most by injuries in the SEC the past several years. I think Vanderbilt and Ole Miss is right there at the top. But, again, at the end of the day, that's not enough, in those scenarios to be able to convince people that, the program is where they want it to be. And so, yeah, it's understandable. Like I said, I don't think this is one that caught anybody by surprise, given the way this season has gone, specifically. But so, yeah, I mean, it's, I thought at the time, the hire made sense, but again, they started off strong and just have not been able to replicate that success the past several seasons.
Yeah, you knew Kermit better than I did. I had interacted him with a couple of times. He had helped me on a story I'd written, I think, about Marshall Henderson a couple of years ago, and I found him to be a very nice guy. We are based in the Nashville area. He coached at Middle Tennessee State for a while and was very much liked and respected there. So you hate to see good guys lose jobs. By all account, Kermit Davis was that, but it's a what have you done for me lately business. Blake, what do you make of the timing of this? It is unusual to see coaches get fired absent some kind of a scandal with a couple of weeks left. I have not heard anything to suggest that there was anything like that involved with Kermit Davis. Why make the move now? Is it trying to get the jump on the next guy potentially?
I mean, that's part of it, but something I always go back to when this happens is the ultimate what if scenario. And that is, what if Ole Miss gets to the SEC tournament and makes a run to the championship out
Yeah.
of nowhere? Um, so if you're already knowing you're going to go that direction, then yes, like the timing, why do it now? Literally the day before they play a game, um, at home in Oxford, where I assume there's some frustration already, right? So, I mean, we said the stat in one of our videos recently, or maybe it's the predictions video. Like they haven't won a home game since December the 17th, and so that's probably part of it too, is just to maybe avoid any continued frustration there. But I always look at it that way. If a move is made like this and you know you're going to make it, I think it really is that. Like it's just sort of avoiding like what happens if I mean because again right they play the next two games at home. They play LSU and A&M at home. I'm not saying just because they're home games like A&M's probably they're probably not going to beat A&M, but like what if they did, right? What if they beat LSU? What if they beat A&M? You know, who knows? What if they went to Missouri and won? Because they almost just won at Auburn, right? So I think that's part of it. Again, I'm not speaking for the people making those decisions, but when you see moves made like this, I think it's just if you know you're going to make it, you make the move, and because then it again sets up a scenario of what if a team makes a huge run and all of a sudden you've got all this momentum and you can't really do that. You can't make that move after that because the optics of it just are not good, right? So
Yeah, I guess now the question where Ole Miss goes next. I heard Dusty May's name pop up in connection with this job as far back as January. I'm sure I'm not the only one. Chris Beard's name has come up. Our friend Neil McCready has written about that a little bit. Beard might be too hot to handle given the nature of what happened, but it's about winning in college basketball. So we'll see where that goes. I don't know if that's too soon. Where do you think Ole Miss goes next?
I mean, Beard's gonna be the name that every Ole Miss fan throws out there. Well, not every one of them, but that's gonna be the name you're gonna hear a lot just because he's available now. And I mean, look, if you're going out and trying to get the best basketball coach out there, right? I mean, how would he not be on top of the list? Um, but I also think that that's probably still more complicated than I don't know, right? Like, I mean, you see what I'm saying? Like, I think that's more of a
Someone's going to hire Chris Beard at some point, I think. Right,
no,
right, wrong,
right,
or indifferent.
yeah,
Yeah,
but it's not a knock on Ole Miss, but like, and we've talked about it before. Like, where does the Ole Miss job rank in the SEC? I mean, it's further down there, right? I mean, it's
Blake.
further down the
I would
list.
say, if I were ranking the worst jobs in the SEC, I would probably have South Carolina at 14, and probably Ole Miss 13, Mississippi State at 12. Is that fair, or is that at least in the
Well, I
ballpark?
mean, that's where I think a lot of people have talked about this job over the years, and most will say like it's a bottom four job in the SEC, just in terms of I guess maybe I don't know. I think it was Goodman that did the several years ago, didn't he? Did the I don't remember what exactly he called it, some kind of series where he talked to a lot of assistant coaches or coaches in the SEC and basically ranked all the jobs based on like 10 different things of criteria or whatever. And I'm pretty sure it was, in the bottom three or something. And it may have been in the order you just said. So I'm not sure. But so I think you have to keep that in mind too with with someone like Beard. I mean, I don't know. There will be other opportunities out there for him. Like you said, somebody's going to hire him. And so how does this job compare to the other ones that are out there? I think that's a fair question to ask. To me, Dusty May is probably, you're talking about someone who's been in the SEC with Mike White at Florida. Obviously, the Mike White connection to Ole Miss. Um, so like I feel like there's probably a lot of positive momentum there, and just based on what Dusty has done this season at Florida Atlantic, I mean, there's what better time to kind of capitalize on that momentum, right? And so I think that will definitely be a name just because of the background on the SEC and all that. So yeah, I mean, those are probably the two names, and I think I'm looking now like yeah. Jeff Goodman's already put those two names like out, saying two names that are likely to be mentioned for the job. So yeah, it's those two. It's Chris Beard and Dusty May, and again, it'll just be interesting I think to see because this isn't just an Ole Miss thing, but like Beard is the ultimate domino in the coaching carousel, right? Like wherever he goes, then it's, how do things fall from there? Because I think he will, and of course we're saying all this to without knowing who's going to be the Texas coach and what if that's somebody jumping from here or there and how that starts to domino. But um, yeah, it'd be interesting for Ole Miss because I'll say this in connection like to the Kermit thing, but like I was always one and that thought that Andy Kennedy did not get enough credit for what he achieved there and kind of how he built
Yeah.
things up. Um, and I don't think he ever got that. And I think that was one where you thought, all right, well, they're making a change now. Maybe they can continue to take that next step because they had the new resources, renovations, all that kind of stuff was in place, but again, it just never happened. And so it will be interesting to see if the next guy can come in and sort of capitalize on some of that because even if it is considered a bottom tier job in the SEC, you can still win at Ole Miss because you also have the luxury of just the way college basketball is constructed right now, where I mean it's you can flip your team every year, right? So you can have a new team every season, and so I think it'll be interesting. But yeah, those are the two names I think you'll see out there. Beyond that, in all honesty, I don't even know. With 3 games left in the regular season, I'm not sure exactly where you would go next. Because unless you're just talking about the usual group of rising mid-major coaches, which is the route that Ole Miss went last time, or do they go just the proven, power conference guy that maybe comes from another school? Those are all things it's hard to kind of figure out at this point. So
Yeah. Kennedy's tenure, I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to. It's one of the, in hindsight, one of the stranger ones, one of the harder ones to know what to do with because he was that perpetual right around 500 coach. They were never really bad until his last year when it just kind of fell apart on him. But got they never got to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament, which again, I don't know if that's a fair expectation. Ole Miss, he didn't have the pavilion, but man, you go back and look, he was 102 and 98 in the SEC, which is hard to do a lot of places to be above 500 after that long. To do it at Ole Miss, a place that does not have a history of winning. And look, I'm not criticizing Ole Miss basketball. Everybody should aspire to be better. But you go back and look, and he did the worst thing he could possibly do, which was be respectable every year. It seemed like they were a perpetual 500 in the league NIT team. And the highs never got very high, but the lows never got very low until the last year. In hindsight, I'm guessing Andy Kennedy is going to be remembered as a better coach at Ole Miss than he was. Anyway, that's a sidebar. I guess that begs the question: is what are fair expectations at Ole Miss? Kermit Davis did recruit a McDonald's All-American. I think Deshaun Ruffin was. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But he couldn't stay healthy. It's an easier place to recruit now with the pavilion, I would think. But again, it's not a place where they've had a lot of huge success in basketball. But then again, you got a lot of schools that could probably say that till those particular schools found the right coach. Auburn being a really good example of that.
yeah, that's the whole point. Is it's been proven at so many places now that you can win anywhere. It's so I don't think like that's even part of the equation anymore because we've seen it, at places we didn't think we'd see it. We didn't think Auburn would get to where they got to. We didn't think, I mean, look at some of the other teams, right? I'm trying to think of like some other teams that have kind of popped. I mean, South Carolina went to a Final Four several years ago, right? I mean, that's kind of a random thing, but it happened, and so you can go up and down the line. And
Florida was nothing. Well, I'm not going to say Florida was nothing until Billy Donovan. Sorry, we're having a little delay here. Florida would be kind of an extreme example. Florida had some success in Norman Sloan and Lon Kruger, but Florida never consistently put it together for a decade or so, like it did under Billy Donovan.
yeah, well, I mean, again, we'll see. I think again, it's like we said, if you're someone that can come in and know how to navigate the transfer portal and go get this guy or that guy, as we talked about, coaches flip their teams pretty much every season now, and so I just think it will be interesting because I think those are the two names that will be the starting point for Ole Miss because they're the ones that make the most sense from just what's out there right now and kind of the situation. So, um, I don't know. I mean, look, I know the Beard one's gonna, there's gonna be a lot of discussion about that, and I mean, we'll see. Like I said, I think it's what other jobs are out there. How does it kind of all come together there? Are other jobs who's competing for who, and like those are always the questions when it comes to this kind of stuff. So, yeah, I guess we'll find out. And look, that's another one too. You talk about the timing, right? I mean, who knows? Like, I mean, is that one of the reasons for the timing? Um, could be. So just based on that, do it now. You get a head start if you're going that direction, and he's someone you're targeting. Then that would make sense. If it's the Dusty May example, well, you're not going to hire Dusty May right now. It'll be a little bit later in the process. So, um, yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, I think it's an interesting one because, yeah, I mean, it's not as though Ole Miss can't win in this SEC landscape because we've seen other teams completely change their fortunes in a season or two. But yeah, they just didn't get there to where they wanted to get to. You know, just based on how they started with Kermit getting to the tournament, they just weren't able again to ever kind of replicate that.
Yeah, apologies for some technical issues on my end. There was a little delay and choppiness on Blake's end, so I didn't mean to talk over him there. Blake also has got a voice issue, so for that reason, we're going to end this today and probably try to put his voice on a pitch count for a couple of days, so this does not
Well,
linger into the
Chris
future.
Chris also said that yesterday, and we did a 40-minute bracketology video. So
Yeah,
let's not kid ourselves here. We'll probably be back with 5 videos today. So
right. Well, we'll have to.
I'm just kidding.
We might have to lock somebody out of the stadium. That might be what we need to do here. So in any case, we got a lot of stuff coming up. Continued football content as stories happen in the off season. We've done predictions. We've done bracketology. We'll have some baseball stuff coming up as we can follow it this weekend. In any case, the best way to get all that is hit the subscribe button. He is Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. We're Southeastern 14. We'll see you again soon.